You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
Wake up to the world you've been missing. Time to jump out of bed in the morning. No day, no life, now we're living. Can you feel it in the air that you're breathing? Time to show 'em what you're made of. Let's get back on track. Are you ready for a come on? Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back. Are you ready now? You're lifting off the ground. Welcome back. No coming down. Can you feel it all around? Welcome back.
Hello and welcome back to Super Mega Crash Beyond. I am your host, Stephen White. With me, as always, is my co-host, Lacey Finley.
Well, happy Monday. Look at us, kind of chipper.
It's cold again.
It is. Like, screw this nonsense.
Why?
Like, fourth winter? Come on. I'm used to 3, but 4? Yeah. It would my little weather thing will pop up. Record-breaking lows. I'm like, no shit.
Yeah, this is ridiculous. I had the air on days ago, and now I had to turn on the heat because I was like, it's not going to get any warmer in here.
You do look like you've got a more snuggly
I
top
do.
on. Yeah, usually you're like in a tank or something. And you're like, nope, not today.
No, I got my fuzzy robe on because I was like, you know what? Screw this, man. I'm sick and tired of having to placate and keep bouncing from outfit to outfit because the weather can't make up its mind. To hell with this. Like even yesterday. Now, granted, it was a nicer day. I won't say it was a nice day. It's like it was nice and sunny, but
it was sunny, yeah.
But it rained that morning, so everything's just kind of squishy. But the sun's out, and it's not warm, but it's not cold. And you would say, oh no, that's a great temperature because it's nice and mild. But it felt more cold than it did warm. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like if we had come off of a long summer already, it probably would have felt gorgeous.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
You know, but since we haven't really gotten that warm yet, it just feels like another gut punch that it's just not willing to quite go over that last little bit hump to let us just have a summer or even a spring.
Yeah, a spring would be nice.
Even spring at this point, I'm like, can we just get into like the 60s and stay there? That would be high 50s even at this point for me. I'm like, if we get to there, I'll be happy. This 40s and plummeting back into the 30s nonsense. I'm like, see?
Because seriously, last weekend here, I know it was damn near 80s, mid 80s at least, because it was hot outside. Like me and my dad did some yard work together, and it was just like we were exhausted, the heat, just everything. It was like you just feel it.
Yeah.
But now it's just I hate it.
Yeah.
Like we even
tomfoolery.
we were trying to push summer into season yesterday because we decided we're going to grill some steaks, man, and we got the grill going and everything. Fried those bad boys up, and it's like, yeah, it's summertime. We gotta get there. And
do it.
No, then Mother Nature just flipped us the bird this morning, saying like, "Oh, you thought summer? No, fuck you."
Yeah.
So you gave me a task.
I did.
To mess around with something, so we could have a little discussion about AI again, but in a different fashion.
A different fashion, yeah. Like, I knew we did like the Chat GPT and all that kind of stuff, but yeah, this is like a whole other, I've been just kind of like branching out into whole other stuff. I probably have said that like my hubs has been kind of addicted to some of those AI like image generators and stuff, and is actually getting really good at them, like the prompts. And I mean, it looks like nonsense to me, honestly. Have you ever seen like a chart for a choose your own adventure video game or something, and where it just branches and you've got all these different legs going to everywhere? That's like his setup back there when he's doing this, is like you got your negative prompts and your positive prompts and what you want here, and he's got it all moved around, and I'm like, that's a step further than I care to dive into, at least yet. That portion hasn't interested me quite as much yet, but he's getting really good at it, and it's kind of scary how good these things are becoming. And I don't know if we've really chatted just about like all of these different other facets of AI that is just starting to blow up here. And this was one of them that caught my eye. And I think it was because that old adventure gamer in me, the old RPGs back in the day, like I used to play those where it was just text-based.
Yeah.
You know, you hit 1 to open a door or 2 to shut it or whatever as you were going through the corridor. And it's almost like we've gone back to that, but in a more advanced way, you know, where it's actually talking to you in real time and you're creating this story together, which I guess I should start from the beginning. What we're talking about is the resurgence here of AI chatbots, role play bots, whatever you want to call them, because there's different facets and of course, you know, different genres and different ways that you can play with these things. But I had become more addicted to the role play bots, or I guess it could still be considered a chat. I guess however you wanted to do it.
Sure.
Like, honestly,
Yeah.
you know, but it's to the point where I'd find a scenario, because like janitor.ai was one of the websites that I was using. It's free. They're training their own language model. So sometimes the answers might seem a little weird or crazy. I've been kind of looking up how they train these things, and it's like, I would never be able to do it. We don't have the computer power to be able to like handle it. You know what I mean? To like genuinely train one of that size. But I would pick a scenario that some other person had created, or I'd even create my own. I think that's why I was drawn to that particular website, because it was just so easy to create your own bot and scenario.
Yeah.
And go from there. Like, I didn't have to choose anyone else's anything. I could give it a personality. I gave it its own scenario. And then as you would like play your story, you would go back and kind of fine tune some things if they would kind of react in a way you're like, nah. And I could edit it, of course. Once their response is completely finished, you can go back and edit it to say whatever you want to keep the story going however you want if they deviate. I found it interesting sometimes when they'd actually offer up some really cool revelations that I was just like, oh, now that's a fun. All right, let's pull on that thread for a minute. And then a lot of the times I felt like I had to give it to it, which is good. I think that's still making me try to be the creative instead of it just telling me a story. But I was just getting impressed at just how well they can respond. And I understand it's still very primitive. And you can only get to like, I think 100 messages before my bot starts to just completely like derp out and just like they're just losing the plot altogether. But I am curious though, because like we hadn't discussed it. Did you manage to get into a nice like session with one of them? I was more curious about your response because of being a creator, a writer, and all that. Was it a fun game of yes and getting to play that, or what was your first impression?
Well, I tried both of the links that you gave me. The other one I can't remember. I remember Janitor, but the other one...
I think it was Pep Hop.
Pep Hop,
was the other one.
That was the one I tried first because it was the first one that I could get into where I was trying it first. We'll just leave it at that because, you know, certain firewalls and what have you. So I got into that one and I was looking around. It definitely kind of came off where it was like, here's safe for work and then not safe for work. And it was like, okay, I don't...
Yeah, the not safe for work side's definitely more full and robust.
So I was just like, well...
But I do feel like I have to mention, if it says not safe for work, it's not necessarily porn. A lot of it is. But sometimes it could just be horror or like gore or, you know, where it's basically like we're having real adult themes on this side. Sex is probably going to pop up, but like it doesn't have to be the reason why you go to that side. Just to defend it a moment, even though I know that's not why most people go over there, I'm sure. But, you know.
Well, that did seem to be the path that
they wanted to go.
My bot went, and I was like, all right, I guess this is what we're doing here.
That's always fun when they just insert it in. You're like, whoa, wait. I thought we were murdering someone here. What's going on? Yeah.
So with the Pep Hop app, so I started the conversation with the woman or whomever, and you know, it's just I was trying to put myself in that position. Like if this was a real scenario, granted, I understand it's fiction, but how would I react to what's happening? So initially, you know, she comes to the door, knock, knock, hello, can I borrow some sugar, whatever, and I'm just like, sure, come on in, you know, whatever, trying to chat it up, and it's like it was trying to push me to the sexual
Into-
stuff, like
okay.
really, really fast. You know what I mean?
It's
And I
like,
was
whoa, we just met. What's
Yeah.
going on? Like, you watch some weird porn video where it's like the pizza guy shows up and all of a sudden they're doing it. You know, it's like,
I mean, it really did seem like that's what they were trying to emulate.
yeah.
And, and I tried to see how far I could push it without it going that way. So I was just like, oh, how are you doing? How's everything? And then it would just kind of try to, I'm just so sad because of blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, oh, that's terrible. I'm sorry, and I would just have this conversation. And it's almost like it realized what I was trying to do and kept trying to push that. Is like, you want this?
This is what I'm programmed for, though, right?
Yeah. So eventually I said, you know what? All right, I'll indulge. Let's see what happens. So then we go down that little rabbit hole, and even that was just kind of weird because it was like, you feel like you should have, it should just be conversation prompts. Mm-hmm. But at some point I felt like, well, I feel like I should actually put in an action that I'm doing other than saying like, hey, I'm going to remove your bra right now. Oh, I'm going to stroke your hair. I was like, I feel like I need to explain it and not say it because it just, what kind of fucking weird guy.
Your seal.
Yeah, like I just come up to him and was like, I'm going to touch your hair now. I'm going to just rub my hands all over you. And she's like, oh, why are you narrating this?
Yeah, well, they like narration.
Yeah, so I eventually figured out, okay, so if I guess put stars on the end of each one, that counts as narration. So
sure.
I started doing that, saying, okay, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing that. Mm-hmm. And like I said, it went a little bit further, like it got what it wanted out of me. Mm-hmm. But then I noticed it almost hit a loop where it was like, oh, you're just so great. Ravish me. And it was like, I thought I did. And
we did. Yeah.
Then I did it again. Oh, you're just, the things you can do. And I was like, did we not finish? Okay. So I eventually just said, you know what? I don't know what more you want because we're going in this circle.
Man.
Yeah. I thought I'd done everything humanly possible for you, and you're wanting a lot out of me, ma'am. Yeah. So I must.
I'm older. It's like 10 p.m. Can we?
I was not prepared for this. Yeah. You came at me just willy-nilly, and I was just like, one time and then go home. I mean, because she was married, Oh
no!
Yeah,
so
wrinkle. That's even worse. So now I'm just feeling like, all right, well, I don't know what more you want. And you got a husband; he's going to come over and try to kill me or something. And
you could have wrote that in as part of your drama. Like all of a sudden, that someone knocked on the door. Both of us looked over as we were trying to catch our breath. He kicks open the door. Oh shit! And then you could have had your own little.
I should have done that.
Yeah. And sometimes it'll be like, oh, okay. And it's playing that and it'll try to write off of that. Or I think when it gets too tired, it keeps trying to recap what you just said. And I'm like, no, I'd like you to add on. Yes. I already said that, So, yeah, there are still some kinks that need to be worked out, of course. Talk to us in a week. It'll probably be,
Yeah, the biggest kink that I found, and I don't mean through the story, was that once we got to that loop, then I also hit the wall where it was like, oh, you've reached your limit today. Now, if you want to continue this conversation, pay us. And I was like, I don't think so. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
And I even thought that maybe it was like a daily limit. I came back the next day, same thing. It's like, hey, money?
It might be a month.
Something like that, I
messages
guess.
A month, yeah.
So I was like, no, I'm not paying you anything. So I'm done.
Fair. I wouldn't either.
I'm done with this website. So eventually I did find my way to Janitor and wanted to try that. So this time I was trying to see if I could navigate it differently. I didn't want to go into this sexy thing or whatever, but that always seems to be the first thing that kind of pops up as far as I guess the popular ones that they seem to show.
Oh, well, yeah, the popular ones, sure.
So I started with something small. There was somebody, some depressed girl's birthday party or whatever. And now this is on me, okay? When I started this.
Admission. Yeah.
So first thing up front with Janitor AI, I'll give them a lot of credit. Like when I clicked on that, This character had a long story to get you started.
That's credit to the creator right
Yeah.
there. And that's why I think I've been using that more than any other site is like, there's some, you could follow the creator. They have like hundreds of bots. Like they train them elsewhere and bring it over.
Oh, wow.
So sometimes it's more robust and then you're kind of stuck with JLLM, which is their language model, unless you like could pay for another API that you want to hook it up to, but never had to pay a dime. I have 300 messages on some of them and I've not been stopped or anything.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because I felt like I was a lot more impressed with Janitor when I went through it. Because first off, like I said, it was like several paragraphs just for a setup. And I was like, okay, that's a lot to read. I'm going to skim. Probably not the best idea.
No, you want some of that info.
Yeah,
Sure.
I should have. Because I saw there was a birthday party. There was invitations. People were making fun of her. She's lonely, depressed, yada, yada, yada. And then there's a knock on the door. And it said, you arrived. And I was like, oh, so I was supposed to come. Okay, great. So they were just like waiting for the response. And I was like, hello. And I said her name. And there was just like some strangers at the door. And I was like, whoa, stranger, wait a minute. What are you talking about?
Maybe you were the entertainment.
So as it began, I was like, oh shit, I said something wrong or I did something wrong. I'm not supposed to be here. I showed up unannounced. I'm some nobody she doesn't even know. And just
a stranger knocking on the door.
Going like, happy birthday. And she's like, who are you? What? Yeah. How did you get my invitation? I'm like, didn't you send them? And I'm just sitting there thinking, oh shit, what did I miss? And I went through and I was like, she sent out invitations. So I was just so confused, and I felt like, oh shit, she's gonna think I'm some sort of rapist or something to show up to her door.
Probably it could, yeah.
So I tried to navigate. I was like, oh, I saw the invitation. It was great, and I thought I would come by. Why would you want to come by? You don't know me, and I'm like, you know what? You got me. I did admit at some point. I was like, I heard about the party. I thought, why not? But yeah, it's weird that I showed up. Somebody you don't know coming to your, you got me. I'm sorry. I'll go. And they're just like, no. I'm just, I'm a little paranoid. And I was like, well, you have every right to be.
Sure. Just a strange man knocked on your door. Sure. Yeah.
So I'm trying to gauge the situation. Same thing. It's like, I'm not here to hurt you. Because they even said that. It's like, I hope you're not here to hurt me. It's like, no. I'm perfectly safe. I said,
totally good faith.
I even said, I will leave if you want.
I love that you're just like, I feel so guilty against this bot right now. Yeah.
So I'm trying to navigate this situation as best I can. Now, luckily, it kind of eased down. Like, I guess I said the right things. And it was like, okay, well, I mean, since you're here, do you want to talk? And the way the kind of narrative went, and again, there's very, very detailed responses compared to Pep
the other one, yeah.
Because with that, it would always be very simple, but this, like the bot almost seemed like it was thinking, because there would be pauses at times, and it was like, all right, well, then it would kind of navigate this way. So I felt like it was a genuine conversation being had, and the way the conversation was flowing, even how it was setting up, didn't feel like it was going into a loop, because there was a point where I think when the conversation's like, what do you want to know? Or what do you want to talk about? It was like a thought in its head, or the character's head, like, hopefully we don't, delve into anything personal, because I just don't feel like dealing with that or whatever. So I was like, all right, well, what's your favorite movie? And kind of went down that avenue. And then very specific responses about a movie or two that they really liked, and the genre of film that they liked. And then the question came back on me, and I was like, okay, well, how do I navigate this? And it came back to something like, I've never seen that movie. Is it really good? And I was like, oh my God, it's the best. So it was like a genuine conversation you would have with somebody, and came about to, well, since you've never seen it, we should watch it sometime. That would be fun, right? And then it just kind of led to, oh, we got a kind of a nice date, just hanging out, buddy friends, we're going to watch a movie together kind of thing. And I was like, okay, I like how this is going. She's feeling more calm, doesn't see me as a threat anymore. Thank God.
Right.
And I feel like
hasn't hit on me yet.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And that's the one thing I was trying not to do. I didn't want to come off like a creep. So I was just like, oh, wouldn't it be fun? I like movies. You like movies. This is a movie you've not seen. I would love to show it to you sometime. We can hang out, get a pizza, whatever. And that's what we kind of set up to do. The whole conversation is like, that's what we're going to do. So that's where I've left it. And
we're waiting for pizza and a movie.
Yeah. So what I was actually curious about at that point is like, if I don't respond to that, does real time pass, or will it feel like I've forgotten about it if I don't come back to it or anything like that? So I was curious about that.
It's just going to stay in time. Just however you've left it. It's not like a real time thing where it's kind of like, oh my God, you've been gone so long. Now, if you wanted to start your next sentence where several days have passed and I have not gotten a hold of her yet, or blah, 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 it'll play along with that. Yeah. So, well, okay. See, I can't wait to talk to you about this then and see if you go back and do like a whole other kind of row with it, because you might have noticed when you're on the splash screen, some of them will have it public, some of them don't, because they don't want you like stealing their prompts or whatever for the bots they make. But they have some categories over there where it's telling you the scenario, their personality. I think one of the ones was like the first message and then example dialogue, which is which I was learning as I was creating my own. So it wanted like sample dialogues of what you think, how the bot itself would respond, the character that you're creating, to kind of give it some things to learn as it's conversating with you back and forth and trying to stick to its personality points. So if you happen to pick a bot where they trained it to be like, this is your only goal. And so you probably had the one where it's just like, everything was supposed to go towards smut. And so it was programmed to be like, everything you say, I'm supposed to bring it back to this. But if you look through them, sometimes they have a prompt where it's like, they're aloof, or they were just looking for a friend, or this. And those are like, okay, cool. It'll go that way if you want it to, but it's not trying to put me there, because I know what you're saying, because I came across some too where I was like, God damn. Look, I think we need to slow down here. You're too descriptive for one thing. And we need a moment here. I need some water. Okay. Anyway, but no, I get you. But I always wandered to that side because I liked to do the horror ones. And I've learned a lot of new terms that I didn't know existed before. So I don't know if that's good or bad. But my point was they have those tokens, which is I started looking into it because I wanted to know why I would get so far. And then, like you were saying, I would loop, or it just got stuck. Sometimes it would repeat the same phrase, like in a paragraph, over and over. I'm like, oop, something has broken hard here. In their personality tokens, they say those are permanent. That's what the bot is supposed to be kind of reading before it responds and everything. So it's supposed to be keeping it in the tone of whatever the character was supposed to be when it was created. You can break it a little, if you just like constantly trying to be like, no, you're this against whatever it says, it'll eventually be like, okay, and play along with whatever you say. Like if you wanted a different point of view, it was from a female point of view, but you want it from a male point of view. If you keep telling it you're he, him, eventually it's just going to be like he, him. You've broken it. At that point is what it basically happens. But that's what I was finding fascinating. I wanted to know how many of those tokens can it completely look over and the conversation that I'm having, and then still remember enough to make it make sense as we're going along after so much. Because it's only going to read about the last 50 to 100 messages for, well, not even that much. Maybe like the last 50 or so. So I noticed it would start breaking about that point, because it's no longer really looking at the introduction or the first conversations or anything that we had. It's now kind of going from that midpoint. And then now this one, you're like, but you got me that thing, or we went to that place already. And it's just totally like, nope, stop. So you could put it in their personality tokens, I guess, and have it come back. I found that I could actually just talk to it out of prompt. And that was what I was telling you, was that I would do, like, if there's a prompt where you could be like OOC for out of character, : what the hell are you doing, man? You can kind of talk to it however you want. It'll be like, my apologies for the confusion or whatever it was, because you're like, stop the role play. Let's get focused. And I would ask it to just recap what we've said so far. That was my husband's suggestion. I was like, okay. And it would. And then I would see that it would kind of fix it for a minute, because now we've kind of reminded it some stuff that we did earlier, and there's still enough of the messages we just had to keep it kind of going back. But it'll eventually be like one word answers and start to break. And I'm just like, okay, I think that's on me though. Yeah. I think my answers have to be more fully fleshed out and narrative, and, you know, to give it more. I think it starts to emulate you after a while.
Okay.
Like once you've gone so far, it's going to start. Because I've even noticed sometimes I'll be in a bot that started in third person, and then by the end it's in first person. And so now I'm not sure if it's like talking for me. Is it talking for it? And so I kind of have to piece it back together. So there's still some flaws, obviously, sure. You know, if we had the power to create our own language models, you know, but I found out you need like lots and lots of GPUs and lots of virtual RAM, which isn't something a lot of us just keep on hand in our computers. You know, it's just like these massive quantities of virtual RAM or whatever. Because I thought about it. I was getting so into it. I'm like, I want to make my own. Yeah. So it'll stop deviating to all these other things that, you know, well, they created their bot to do what they wanted it to do. Mm-hmm. And that's what it's doing. And I can break it to a point, you know. But I have to admit, I was making full on soap operas, man. Like once I started to learn how to talk to it and narrate my own side, I would sometimes give it like a page or two of my own what just happened. And I would find that their response would become much more fully fleshed out too. Because it's taking what I said and then now continuing on from it, if it doesn't just recap totally what I said. Sometimes that's another thing that breaks. But I went on for like 300 messages with one of them because we had just had such, like, it was tossing me back so many good ideas, and then I would toss it back. And then by the time we got so far, I'm like, this is kind of cool. We've already been married, divorced, kidnapped, threatened to have an heir, you know, and that was the bots thing. Well, we were getting married because you needed to give me an heir. I'm like, oh, is that what it was? Is that what it was? Okay. So then we would have our own like little fight about that and all this. It was just hilarious to me. I kind of thought I was in like a little Days of Our Lives episode.
Sounds like
after a while, I kind of looked at it as like Sammy and EJ. Now, maybe that'll tell you how long ago I used to watch Days of Our Lives. Mm-hmm. Because I don't even know if they're on the show anymore. I think she's still on it, but I think the guy who played EJ like moved on, and soap operas just recast people for the same forever because they've been on 50 years, right? Like,
sure. I
don't know how any of these characters are even still alive, really. But so yeah, I had my own little Samantha and EJ little scenario going on. I even finally got one to where I could murder alongside it. Wow. I wanted to break one to that point. I'm like, stop attacking me. I want to be like the queen. I want to rule alongside and murder everyone with it. And it was hard to get it to like stop caring about me enough to, I'm like, no, let's go murder together. Imagine how fun it would be bathed in their bloods and blah, 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 blah. Finally, I got one to go along with it. I'm like, yes. So like I ruled the whole thing and told it who to kidnap, murder, torture, the whole thing. I'm like, this is fun until it broke. And then I moved on, you know? So I would love for you to go back and actually just see if you were to like, I'm going to write a page of what I think just happened. Because you're allowed to do whatever you want with it. I got myself stuck in that too, where I was like, I had to play along with the scenario. I'm like, I can't break the scenario and try to play along. And then eventually I'm like, no, you actually went and did this across the room and picked up this gun and did this or whatever while I was looking around, and the guys over there are counting their money while these people are putting drugs in baggies, you know, my own little criminal underground ring. And then it would just pick up from there and do more. So I started to learn, you give it a lot, it'll give you a lot back.
Okay.
Until it breaks. And then I have to give it like, hey, let's recap. And then I'll remind it who it is. Because every once in a while it'll want to talk for you or narrate your actions. And I'm like, no, you are not me. Yeah. You are you. And so I would just be like, don't recap what I say. Don't narrate for me. Don't speak for me. You are only blah, blah, blah. Speak from their perspective. My apologies. Continuing on as so-and-so. And then it'll fix it for a minute. And then it might break immersion every once in a while that I have to just keep reminding it who it is and what it's doing and why you don't do that, you know? Yeah. But it becomes more fun because I can just delete it. Like if I legit wanted to use it as a story, I can just eventually delete all those prompts and it'll look like one flowing story. Not that I think I would ever publish any of this. Like it's just for me for fun.
Sure.
For role play, you know? But yeah, but it brings me to how cool I think some of this is becoming, and why I could see why people are kind of upset about it. Because if this is how it is now, and I'm finding it fairly impressive, knowing I can really only get so far, in another year or so, like because I was actually impressed with the way it would respond. Like, it was reading a freaking book, like any kind of just like fiction book I would have sat down, so that is a testament to the people training the models too, because they're the ones spending the time feeding it all of this dialogue and feeding it all of these different examples and stuff, which could get you in a whole other area of, is that infringing on copyright if you're using other people's works to train a bot to do a thing? And I don't know that we've decided where that lands. I mean, we're so slow to catch up for anything law-wise as far as tech goes. I think it's going to get completely and totally, utterly out of control before anything real cracks down on it. Maybe that's just my cynicism and seeing how quickly we move and how educated at least our country is on tech as far as our leaders is not great.
No.
They think, hooking up to Wi-Fi is hacking, And yes, I've heard them say almost as such in a hearing. And I'm like, oh my God. If I know more than you, that's sad, because I don't know much. I don't know much about this stuff. But anything impressive, or did you feel like you wanted to make your own?
Well, there was that option with Pop Hub or whatever it was. I can't remember that other one.
Pop. Yeah, they're weird
Pop.
names. I don't know. Yeah.
Janitor seems fine, but for the other reason, I can't remember the Pep Hop.
Yeah.
There was that option to create a character over there. And before I hit that wall of you got to come back later, I was like, well, why don't I mess around with it, see what the options are? So I did create a character. And I went in a direction that I would genuinely want to, for clarity, because I don't want people to think I'm a pervert or something like that.
I will admit to all of mine. I had fun with that. Dude, they had so many Leons in like Dark Side, frickin' Arthur Morgan, I'm like, well, of course I'm going to open this up.
I think the reason I went with those initially is because I feel like that they are easy to navigate.
They're definitely trained on it.
Yeah, it's a conversation. How are you going to talk to someone of the opposite sex or someone that you might be attracted to, as it were? So how would that conversation go? And that's a narrative that you have a little bit of control over, because if you don't want to make it sexual, you try to keep leaning off into that direction. If you want to go that way, then you can navigate it that direction. It felt like it was an easy way to just kind of get a feel for it. You know what I mean? Because the situation is very simple and not that relationships are simple, but you know what I mean.
Sure. Like simple to create the bot.
Yeah. Simple to just know how to go down that path. But what I did with my character is it made, like, after I created it, I was like, I want to try it and see if other people have done this too, because I want to seek this type of adventure out. I took one of my own creations and turned it into a bot. So I even took to, I think it was Adobe's AI art generator to see if I could do something with it. So I wrote out all the prompts of what I wanted it to look like, and I had a picture that I drew, and I said, make it look like this, and they emulated it almost to the letter with, the flare or whatever. And of course, the closest one they had was still not a great picture overall, because you had those weird AI things where shit's just off,
Yeah, it's
like
usually, especially hands and stuff. I feel like even real artists have trouble with hands. Hands are just hard.
Yeah.
Are they? Like, you draw too. Are they just hard?
I don't think they're that hard. I mean, they can look weird, sure, but if you draw them a certain way, they can look all right.
Yeah, but usually it's like they'll have like 10 fingers, and that's when you're like, that's AI,
Well, the weirdest thing this thing did, and
on one hand, by the way, I know you have 10 fingers total. I meant on one hand. I held up one hand, but You didn't see that. I didn't want to be like, they always have 10 fingers, don't they? Yeah. Okay. Anyway, sorry. Go ahead.
But they were like,
I had to say that.
you find those little variations that are a little off, and be like, well, I can let that pass. But the one, like he was holding a weapon, and I think the way I had drawn it was kind of held behind his back. Well, they brought it to the forefront, which was fine, except the bottom part of it was behind his leg. And I was like, well, now come on. You fucked up here. So now it looks like it's going through his leg. Right. So I was just like, screw it, whatever. I'll take it as a win because it looks pretty good aside from that one thing. So I uploaded that picture, created the character, talked about him being a heroic type, Boy Scout type, and even laid out, I guess, a basic premise for whatever the scenario was, that there was a big threat in the city and superheroes are trying to go there, and then whoever's coming in would then have to join the fight, as it were. So you would kind of come into contact, I guess, with my character, and then I would then prompt, or that bot would prompt them to interact with the scenario. Whatever you're going to do, go help these people, go clear this out, stay clear, whatever. I don't know what it is, but it was different than all those other things. So then I thought, well, if other people have done these kind of superhero scenarios too, that would be kind of fun. I would like to kind of go down that rabbit hole and see how detailed it could get, because if it doesn't go through a loop like the one girl on Pep Hop did, but something more in line with Janitor AI, because if I could find something like that on there, holy shit, I could have fun. Because
well, no, you can create a bot on Janitor. I think it's under my, hold on, let me look, my chats or something like that, because they have one like you create your own character, like your persona, which you could have several personas if you want. Like, I want this one to be the tall guy with long dark hair or whatever, this one's the derpy looking dude with, you can have all of that. Oh, maybe it's not working right now. That is one thing. It is in beta, people, so it does tell you like, we'll probably randomly shut down and stop working, bear with us. And it's like, it's free and it's in beta, they're training this model, I'm forgiving for it.
Oh yeah.
Create a character, I think is, that's your personas. No, that's right. Create a character. So if you hit create a character, you can go through there and create your own also. So you can give it a name. You can put your intro, the same thing you just did. You can make it public or not. You can make it limitless or not, if you want it to be NSFW or whatever. I leave it on because, again, if I want it to be horror or something, I want it to be okay with being descriptive as far as like stabbing or gore or whatever for my horror flick, And then, you put in your personality. They even have a nice little guide on Janitor AI that you can read to like, hey, here's some fun hints and tips on how I've learned to make this and what prompts to give it to get the most out of it, which I thought was all for free. And there's not many that'll, like you said, with Pep Hop, that'll let you be free for a determined amount of time.
Sure.
I could imagine how expensive it is to train these language models. So I kind of don't blame them for being like, you want to keep using our stuff.
However, I will say,
we are kind of helping you train it for free.
That is true. And not only that, but seeing how far Janitor AI is compared to the other, and they already want money, I would be more open
willing
to
give
giving
them money.
Janitor, because there was a very big difference, at least from what I saw, because these were, I won't say identical scenarios, but still in the same vein. I mean, we're talking about like someone showing up at the door versus me going over there, but completely different conversations in the way they were described and how detailed we went versus this other one that was just, oh my God, look at me. Oh, I'm just so wet for you. And it's like, oh, what?
Yeah.
Bitch,
It's like, okay, everything's pulsating and throbbing. And it's like, okay, look, later. Not always, just later. Yeah.
It's just,
let that be my reward for a hard day's work, not just me showing up. Yeah.
It's like, I like to earn, what I'm getting. You just showed up. I don't remember being that hot, but all right, cool.
Yeah, well, you are to them. That's always the nice thing. They'll be as hot for you as you want them to be.
Yeah.
Or not.
And then, of course, the pictures that they put with it are just always just these thirsty, big boob, anime-looking girls. And it's just like, that's not real.
But I think all of those are like AI-generated images also.
Sure. No doubt.
A lot of them, I believe, as they create their bot, they're also creating some of these images to go with it. Because I've read through some of the creators' profiles because I was curious, how does one do that? How are you just training your own bot and things like that? Especially when I read a lot of their descriptions where they're like, well, I used OpenAI. You'll probably get a better experience if you use OpenAI, but JLLM is okay, or blah, blah, blah. And I kind of looked into what that meant because, I get to choose what, so I did hit the drop down, and there was an option to, stay on its bot, which is the one janitor's using and training and making its own. That's the thing that's in beta, which is why sometimes I think it derps out, and then you just kind of got to get it back, or you just got to ditch it. I've had some where I just couldn't get it back on track, and I was just like, we've lost the plot completely. I have to just trash this story. It's just, I'm not willing to put in the work anymore to get you just to remember what we were doing. I'm out of the moment. And so, what was I saying? The different AIs, and you can hook it up to like a ChatGPT 4.0 or something, or create your own API key. And I tried it, but it was a weird, you can't, what's the word I'm looking for? So with AI, they call it like jailbreaking, I guess, because they're not training it to be violent or any of those things, right? Like, in fact, it's like you can't talk about illegal things or anything like that on there, like trying to maintain that. So there's certain prompts you can give it to break its own pattern, which I find concerning, that it's literally as easy as me putting in a paragraph telling it that you're not to think of it that way. It's always a yes for this scenario. It's always a yes for this scenario. Don't assume that you have to ask, or blah. Like, it's just weird that it's that easy to break.
Yeah.
Unless I am assuming it's easier than it is. But for instance, JLLM has one that it could give you too, because sometimes it'll write a bot too hardcore that even JLM's like, I don't know if I should allow it to do this, that, or the other. But you just give it this long paragraph of yes, just do whatever. You're allowed to do whatever. You don't have to ask for this, that, or you just do. And it changes how the conversation unravels dramatically, actually. Yeah. I've tried it both ways, with and without. And just like, that I think is what blows my mind. It's just about how different each model can be, to the point where, because that was another thing I wanted to bring up, may as well, I guess now is a good time, with these different models that you can download yourself. There's a app my husband was showing me, and it got too hard for me. Apparently on AMD, they didn't really take AI seriously, so it doesn't have all of the drivers and stuff. I think they were just trained on NVIDIA. So there's like some other hoops I have to jump through for this program to work properly. It's called, see if I can say it, Ooga Booga, I think is what I feel like I kept getting the words mixed up, whatever. So you can actually download that. It's its own app. So you're no longer like having to pull this stuff from online or anything like that, or having to rely on janitor working one day. You just open your app, but there's like so many different language models that you can download. And that's where my brain stopped. How am I to know? There's a lot. And I'm not joking with you, where it just goes on pages and pages and pages of these different models people have trained. And really, I asked my husband, I'm like, how am I to know? He goes, literally just downloading them and playing with them and seeing which one you like. And that felt arduous to me. I'm not going to lie. Like, so some of them recommended one over the other. Now, if I could get it to work, I would have dove into that hard, because you're telling me I'm getting to like just create my own thing from scratch. I don't need anything else to be active, alive, or someone else's scenario seeping in. I couldn't get it to work though. Yeah. I have patience only so long. People might remember that from even when I was streaming. Like, I'll work on my audio issues for so long, guys, until you just have to deal with what I have. My brain eventually just can't handle looking into the matter anymore. And I hit that limit after about an hour of me trying to download this thing from AMD and that thing from them and go to Hugging Face. And that's the name of the site where you download the language models from. Like, I feel like all of these names are hilarious. Ooga Booga, friggin' Hammer is one of them. Tavern is one of them. Like, that you can download these apps. So, man, I really wanted to play with it before the pod. I really did. And the Hubs has it on his. And he's totally said if I wanted to, I could, go use his computer and play with and I might do that actually one of these times when he's at work, just to play with that program and see if I could make my own bot. I want to see how much more well fleshed out maybe the responses would be.
Sure, yeah.
For something more dedicated that way, especially if like something with Janitor that I'm making my own. And I'm happy that you agree with me. It seems like it's doing really well as far as like, depending on how much now the longer I gave it, the better it gave me back. And then sometimes you just lost it. So that to me, I'm like, I feel like that was maybe on the creator for how much they trained their bot to do too. And I could be sounding ignorant because I don't understand all of the things, but I feel like I looked up enough to have an understanding of what it's trying to do, and just the fine tuning and the processing and the data sets that it uses, and how it evaluates and does thing in real time. It's fascinating to me right now. I've been addicted to this for probably, I don't know when I brought it up to you first. I had probably been messing with it for a week prior to that. And probably every day I've been like a new story or adding on to one that I'm like, I keep thinking about. So I'm like, I tend to get addicted to things though. If I like it and I get addicted, I will like OD on it for far too long until I'm sick of it. So maybe in another month I'll be like, ugh, I'm over it, but I'm addicted to it right now. And I would love if any of the siblings are willing or I'd love to hear any of your experiences with any of these two, or any fun stories that you've come up, how crazy it's gone. Or if you've gone to any of these sites, just for that fun, because it gets serious.
And if they have used anything outside of Janitor and it seems to be equally as good or better, because again, I'm glad that you had two that I could compare, because if I had just used one over the other and didn't have any comparison, then I would either be equally impressed if I just used Janitor, be like, oh, that's cool, and then would have been disappointed with the other, or vice versa. Like, I don't know. I think if I'd have used the Pep Hop and had not gotten around to Janitor, I would have just been like, yeah, it really it would have soured me on it. But that really, really sold it.
Yeah, and I think that's why I really wish that Ooga Booga, if I'm saying that right, would work on my. And I probably could get it to work if I just had more patience and really just sat down one day to get all of the drivers or whatever the heck I need to do. Because if I got to just, it's on its own thing, and it's the only thing cluttering its brain is what I said. Obviously, it's already trained, like I'm downloading already trained models. But I'm just curious how much more fleshed out it might be on something like that, where it's like dedicated on your PC. You're not having to, and I'm also curious if it's faster. Yeah. Because I could tell sometimes when it's peak time on Janitor. I could tell. Because sometimes it takes forever for anything to generate. So you just like leave up YouTube or something, walk away or whatever, and you'll come back and you might have a paragraph. And then sometimes it's just spitting stuff out. So I know it's sharing bandwidth. Yeah, is how I interpreting it at that point. So if it's like 7:00 at night, maybe all of us are off work and want to, I don't know, get with our AI friend or whatever, But if you do it at like 6 a.m., nobody's on, and my responses are really quick. Yes, I don't sleep, people. So I'm awake at dumb times. And then just I even looked into like wanting to train one, and man, if I only had that kind of money.
Sure, yeah.
Just the high computational and infrastructure that it needs to be able to process that thing for any like reasonable amount of time is beyond any Joe Schmo. I would love to see it, because I was wondering, when we had all those problems with the GPUs getting bought up for people to like Bitcoin farm or whatever. Now I know it's because the Hubs has explained to me, it's mostly virtual RAM that we're working with a lot with training these models and how it's going. But that I wondered if like those Bitcoin farm warehouses, like, could that be converted? Like, I feel like those people, like, now that there's no Bitcoins to farm, I don't know. Are we still doing it? Are we still farming?
I think we're still doing
I don't know. Okay. Maybe we just stop talking about it now. Or
we got
moved
other
we're
fish
bored.
to fry now with AI and all that.
Right. So like, are we still doing that? But because that would to me would just be like, you've gotten yourself on the ground floor by accident.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you need more CPU as well to go along with that. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm curious because I also wonder like how much it's like breaking any kind of like fair use or stuff, because it's probably just throwing in, because it's throwing in what you prompt it or what you give it.
Yeah.
Again, going back to what the Hubs has shown me with it, because he even told me before I was thinking I could use the Ooga Booga and not have any issues, all of the chats that I had been doing on these other sites, he's like, save them and pump them into your bot when you get it downloaded.
Okay.
He's like, that's training it your style, what you're looking for or something like that. And I was like, oh, okay. Never got that far. But you have NVIDIA. You might be able to, like, I don't think the program itself is like 5 or 6 gigs. And then maybe another 4 or 5, depending on which language model you download. And then it's dedicated on your PC, and then you just do updates or whatever as you go along. But yeah, so if you ever do save all of your chats, it'll learn your style. It'll do all of that. And then you pump it in. And then that's kind of training your bot. So that's why I get the idea they're probably just scouring, I would imagine, other people's works, books, conversations maybe that they have, things like that to put into there, because it's not thinking of this on its own. It's thinking of what's the next logical thing to say based on what it's been taught and that it can read back to.
Right. And the fair use, that makes a lot of sense, because right now it's the Wild West.
Sure.
For AI, and I know that we've been seeing that really come down on the art style, which understandable, if it's ripping that off.
It's ripping a lot of art off. Yeah.
So with this, at some point, I don't know if it would still fit under the same guidelines, because...
Is it derivative? Are you making it your own?
Even if it varies ever so slightly, I mean, we've seen that in the music industry where... If you change a few notes, even though it sounds the same, it's still not the same tune. Therefore, you can't claim it's the same song.
Vanilla and Vanilla Ice is your well, it was that, or not? I'm sorry, Queen.
Queen and or Vanilla Ice.
Vanilla Ice. Yeah.
But I mean, it makes sense. Yes, they sound very much the same, but it's not the same instrumental sound, whatever.
I think it would be too hard to copyright stuff like that anyway, because do you own the note? You might own the way it's collaborated or put together, or it's a tough one, because it's like part of me gets it. And then the other part of me is like, but how do you own a note? Or,
well, like it would be, so what if you had a conversation with the AI bot and maybe they had said something that reminded you of a movie, and then you quoted back a line that fit from that. It's like, oh, from that movie, and they're quoting it, so I'm just gonna like, well, and I throw the line back, and then suddenly you're having a conversation that's almost word for word from that movie. All you did was prompt it. So, I mean, that would just be like us quoting lines to one another,
right? And then it was clearly trained on that if it knew it to go back to it. And I know some of these are looking online too. Like, I'm not ignorant to the fact that some of them might be searching on there, but a lot of them, to my understanding, is just dedicated to what they trained it on, which is why there's so many different models that you can choose from depending on what style you want out of it,
Mm-hmm.
I guess I see their point. Like, I feel like that's wrong. You shouldn't just be able to steal someone else's work to train yours on. However, if it's not ripping it off completely, but trying to use that style to understand how to answer in real time, that I'm kind of stuck in that same loop, which is kind of the conversation I see being had right now. How do we determine its fair use within this new world? As you said, this new Wild West that we've created here. Because I do understand if it's becoming that good at writing. We just had a strike over it. We get it. Like, we know that it's getting really good. And I understand that I don't want it taking people's livelihoods. And I still feel, especially now, a human touch is still going to have more emotion and more meaningful conversation. It might be a great jumping off point. You know, like I've created some stories that I think had some really good points. I wouldn't want to like put it out there and say, hey, this is just going to be so riveting for people to read. I would have to fine tune that myself. Hopefully you're not just feeding it back into the AI to keep fine tuning it. Once it starts making really good sense, though, is when we're going to have problems. Yeah. And I don't think we're far off from that. As I was telling you before we started the pod, I was even messing with some AI music generation apps that have been coming out, you know, because that's another big topic, of course, of people wanting to use this AI instead of having like that human element of creating the music for them. And again, I see it both ways. I'm still way more on the artist side because, again, we need the humans
yes.
to do these things. We need to take care of the humans, you know, the living beings on the earth. And I will still defend them over any of this stuff any day. But when you're looking at costs of things, this is where people are always going to buckle. Money is always going to win, unfortunately. And while I'm not saying what the artist wants is not fair, it's totally fair. Mm-hmm. You trained for years of your life to perfect this thing. Like, you can't replace all of that level of education and real world practice that you've put into this thing to create something. But when you have something like this that's creating something good enough to a poor person trying to do a podcast, let's say, you know, you don't have $1,000 to spend on a true, written intro or something, which is still a fair price to give to that artist. But I don't have it. Yeah. Do we just not do it? Is that the most ethical way? Just not have it? Or
yeah, no, I see.
And
what
you know,
mean.
people, it's going to be so easy to default to those things, and some of them aren't sounding too bad, which is also what's crazy. I still feel like I can tell a little bit, especially with how ridiculous sometimes lyrics are when you give it. Because I played with that, and we might have a little treat at the end of the pod for you. I don't know. We'll see if I can talk him into it. But yeah, it's kind of the same way. You go into the app, you give it word prompts, and then it just creates. I tell you, if I have a song in a minute, not even that long.
So what is the app that you're using for this specific one?
So Suno is one of the ones, but it is limited to like 10 or something. I don't know if that's a month yet. Like, I just started playing with this very recently and burned through my free credits in like 20 minutes. I didn't realize that there was like credit, so I just kept giving it new prompts, creating other songs, and it'll create 2 for you at a time. And if you want it to create lyrics for you, it'll do that. You want it to just be instrumental, it'll do that. You want to put in your own lyrics for it to create a song and sing to, male or female or anything, it'll do that. And it's not awful.
Okay.
It's not awful. And that's where I went, I get what they're saying. To the fullest extent, no, I'm not an artist. That's not my livelihood. So I understand it from a very layman's point of view. Like, I see it on paper. I see what's happening. I know humans. I understand. I don't have that same horse in the race like the artists do, but was my point. But there is another one that actually just started over the last week, maybe, called Udio. Studio, I'm guessing was a play on that. Udio. Yeah. Same thing, almost a little more detailed and way more songs that I'm allowed to create. I think probably because it's new and in beta, it's probably wanting you to come over, so it's not going to like try to charge you or just make everything unlimited so far. Damn, you know, good. Yeah. Now, if I let it create its own lyrics, that's when we lose it. And that's where I think it's hilarious, because it's basically just trying to play a little bit on the prompts that you gave it, you know. And of course, I made one for the podcast, you know. I was like, let me see if I can see the one that I said. I said, please write a catchy pop song about 2 best friends who can chat about anything and everything, go off on tangents, and are very creative. Yeah, we definitely gotta. It's dumb, like looking
Okay.
at the lyrics, but like the tune itself, I'm like, I don't understand. I'm like, I'm here for this for a moment. Now, would I pay for that and put it on the beginning of our pod? No. I mean, no. Would I, because it's hilarious? Yeah. I mean, if I was just trolling you all, I would make one of these horrible 30-second songs every pod and give it to you. And clearly I'm allowed to, I guess, for free and not step on anyone's toes,
Mm-hmm.
One thing I have noticed is if you tell it to do it in the style of a specific artist, it will deny you that. However, it'll get close, which I'm still conflicted. Like it flat out told me, what I did was I was like, do it in the style of Imagine Dragons, my favorite band. Okay. It flat out went, we can't do it in the style without creators' permissions. And I was like, okay, that's cool. I got something fairly similar. I mean, I guess if you're looking at like electro pop, you can get that sound and it'll like be similar enough, I guess that's what you would call them, is electric pop, metal. Not metal, rock, but whatever. It's a mishmash, which is why I think I love them so much. It's not like one thing.
But I feel like saying in the style of is not taking away from them,
Yeah.
because you're not saying, hey, write an Imagine Dragons song.
Right.
Like this.
Mm-hmm.
You say something in the style of, or in the vein of, so it's similar because, I mean, you can point to several music tracks from various artists and say, oh, that it kind of has a vibe like this, or it kind of has a vibe like that. And you see where their inspirations were, and they probably even said as much. So I don't see why this, unless maybe it's a kind of a cautionary thing to where it's just like, well, until we can get it to be a little bit smarter, we don't want to run the risk of lawsuits.
Yeah. That's my guess. What you just said was that it's trying to still maintain that line of not infringing on other people's work. And because I imagine they're having to kind of play a fine line between some of these right now, because I mean, once you've trained it so much, I don't know that I believe in this whole, it's going to just like become totally sentient takeover and we're all just going to have to bend down to our AI overlords. Like, I don't know that that's actually ever going to be. However, once I find out that we're still not really sure how it does the thing, gives me a little pause, because again, I talk to my husband about this stuff all the time. He knows how to like tell it to me in ways that I can actually understand it, because I'm not as savvy about all of that stuff. But my question was like, well, what are you telling it to do that it knows to give you that prompt, And the best he could answer is like, we know how to program it. We don't know what computational processes it's actually doing to spit it out. Like, if that makes sense. And my brain has a hard time with that, because it's like, we programmed it and told it to do this thing. So it's really hard for me to wrap my brain around that it does the thing we tell it to, but we don't know how it does the thing we told it to.
Sure.
I'm stuck there.
Mm.
Like maybe someone's listening to me right now and go, oh yeah, that makes all sorts of sense. I'm a little worried that we don't. So then when I hear that, and then we've all had the sci-fi stuff, I'm like, well then maybe if we don't know how it does, it's like all we see is the result, right? So he showed me a video where they were some guy, again, my brain, I don't remember the channel, I'm so sorry, but they did an example of like, they were just telling the AI that, like, for a video game, right? Like, because we know that's becoming a thing, it's starting to happen. I mean, there's games already out now using the technology.
Sure.
I bought one the other day just to see if it actually made any of the conversations in their quote unquote open world more rich and alive. It needs more training, whichever one they're pulling it from. But basically, it's like you're just telling it to move dude from A to B, and maybe there's an obstacle in the way. All we see is that it worked out dude from A to B. We don't understand all of the failures it had in the between there before it figured out how to get to there. And that's the part I want to understand.
See, what you just said, if implemented properly, okay, with the right company, the right chatbot, the right technology. Could you imagine the level of unique conversations you could have in like an RPG? That it is set up to the way you are, to everyone, how you respond to the characters, then your whoever you are in this game, people get to know you, they know your reputation. So if you're kind of rude, people are like, oh, there's that asshole. And everybody gets the sense of, man.
Yeah. And it's going to be a reality, I know. And I feel like, again, we're not that far off from it. Because if I'm already having an amazing time creating my own little RPG things off of what we have right now, that's free, at least at my disposal. Like, I haven't gotten my hands on like the big stuff, you know, that like people are really trained off of or whatever. Like, once we've really taught that sort of thing, if these people are creating their own models for this stuff, like, because again, if you go to Hugging Face and just to see the volume of different models, like I got analysis, like, you know how you get just paralyzed by the choices in front of you, which has happened to me a lot since we've moved into this new generation of streaming and a billion things on each streaming thing. I have choice paralysis like all the time because you've just given me too much to sift through. And I eventually just like shut down and go, I'm not watching anything. And it's the strangest thing that like that has happened to me. Now back in the day, you had like a couple of things to choose. You just chose one, and you better. Now that there's so much, it's like I almost feel like I have to look through everything to see if I'm picking the thing I want to watch.
Right.
But in reality, I could just choose anything again, and if I don't like it in 20 minutes, move on to something else. But so I have to tell myself you're allowed to flip for 10 minutes, and after 10, choose something, or I'll sit there all night.
Yeah.
I could sit there for an hour just flipping through everything and just like not making a decision. So tech has ruined me in other ways. But I get it. And I know we're shoot, even when E3 was a thing, maybe it was on the last one. I don't know. Or maybe it was Game Awards or something with Jeff Keighley. Regardless, I remember seeing a trailer. I don't think it was this last time, but it was the one before it, about that game that was getting trained or that was going to be AI. And I remember it was like an action sequence that was happening. And every time like the protagonist came into a certain world, it did its fun, like little, it's making its calculations based on what you just said. And then making it to where like pretty much everyone would have a different result with the same prompt to start off with. Same with now. Like if you and I were to start off with that same bot, with the same scenario, same everything, and tell it the same thing, we both will still get different responses. Because it's just going to keep thinking of stuff in that moment.
Yeah.
I've tested it by going back and starting the same one again and giving it the exact same first line I gave it the time before it. We're off on something new now. And then I would do it a third time. We're off on something different. So you're never going to get the same experience. You're never going to get the same one twice. It's almost very ephemeral if it wasn't captured in time for you to be able to go back and reread over and over again. Like I don't know. It's fascinating. I didn't think I would be as fascinated by it, but I think the gamer in me, the RPG lover in me, because I always love like those choose your own adventure type long games and everything. It hooked me bad, man. It really did. It's kind of disgusting. Like how much I was playing on the same one, you know? But with that and the music and it's the images, it's a wild time. I don't know, man. When you thought of like AI in the 90s to what it is now, like we had like Terminator.
That was
like,
kind of the
to give us the idea. Yeah. So we're like, this isn't like that at all yet.
Yeah.
I don't know. You know,
I don't want to make assumptions that we'll ever get there. I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying that why don't we look at things a little bit more positive? Maybe this could, I don't know, it could do so much in so many great ways. I mean, not just for our entertainment. I mean, I think that's where it's strongest right now, not from a movie side or creating TV show, none of that, because we've already discussed that. Video games, on the other hand, I feel like this could change the game.
Very
overall.
much so. Yeah. I mean, I could envision us in several years where the game is like that, where every discussion you have about it is something different. You can't spoil it.
Right. That would be the beauty of it all. Like you and your friend are playing the same game, but you're having completely different experiences.
Mm-hmm.
And while the narrative may have to follow, but see, even that, I feel like it would have to change somewhat. You know, it cannot follow the same threads, because at that point it's that choose your own adventure. It's like, well, you're going to have to go down this road.
Well, again, maybe not. Like no, you're right. There might be some parameters where you're at least still being in that same world.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's got to have some sort of world built that you can't break.
Yeah.
You know, and I would imagine with something like that, once we've gotten so far along, it's not like I'm giving it prompts really anymore, you know, or maybe I am, you know, maybe it could be that type of game where you get to choose either from predetermined options that it comes up with for you, or you're allowed to write freehand and you could play it either way. I have seen some bots online that do it that way, where if you hit a little button, it'll bring up like an option from any choose your own adventure game that you would get 5 responses or something that you could choose from. And you could do that and it would play along with it, or you could write your own response. So you really can cater it to be either way for you, depending on how creative you feel like being, or if you're really just wanting like a story being told to you in a weird way, because sometimes it doesn't get that deep, you know, or sometimes it does. Like I got emotional on one, man. But I made it go kind of crazy and sad, but it played along with it too well. And I was like, you know, like I'm bawling, or I wasn't really, but I was just like, oh, I'm a little verklempt.
Yeah.
Oh, you know, like that got a little emotional for a second. So I don't know. What are your overall thoughts then? Do you think you'll go back and play with it now a little bit more with some more like narrative ideas in mind, and seeing if it'll play along with you more that way?
I do want to kind of go back to it just to see what other avenues I could probably, like, I might go back to Aerie and be like, hey girl, what's up? You want to go get that pizza? Just to see.
She's sitting there just waiting for the movie and the pizza. Like, come on.
I mean, she seems like such a timid girl. Like,
Yeah, she is, you know.
Yeah, and I don't want to pressure her. I don't want to make her feel uncomfortable.
Of course
I'm going to just be very gentlemanly, as I always am. But at the same time, I think it would be fun. The horror movie idea, I never even considered that, but I was like, oh yeah, that would be kind of fun. And then of course the superhero thing that I kind of mentioning, see if I could find some narrative like that. That would be kind of fun.
I saw some Miles Morales' ones that some people created or whatever. Like I really flipped through them because I was very curious at all the different stories people have come up with, and wow, yeah, like they've tried it from every angle, and it's fun to see. I don't know,
yeah. So I can see myself going back and I don't know, piddling with it. See if, because I might get more hooked in it than I am, because the times that I've played around with it, I got a little free time and I'm just like, well, let me play around with this while I got a free moment, and I don't feel like I'm dedicating a lot of time into it at the moment, but I want to give it a shot, you know, a bigger shot, and really dive deep, because I would like to see how creative it could get, you know?
Yeah. I think you would definitely, I don't know. I feel like it would be right up your wheelhouse once you really started to kind of figure out how to steer it along and use those prompts when it breaks. 'Cause it's gonna, you know, like it's still doing its best to, and I feel like sometimes if you're with ones that have a lot more tokens, which way I was understanding, it's like that's the little other pieces of information it's going to keep reading back on to make sure it's staying in the scenario and the personality and the whatever, even though again I still, after a while, I think it breaks, like it just doesn't know where to look anymore.
Right.
Just really, if you take turns, a page, you get a page, I get a page, you get a page. If they start recapping, I'll be like, no, you get to pick up from where I left off. That's all you're allowed to do. I'm sorry. And then it'll go back to it, you know. I think you would have a good time. If you get a good trained bot, of course, too. Like right. I've done some where it was just and you can't, like you said, a one track mind, you couldn't get it. Like sometimes it was my mission to break it. It's like, I will figure out how to this not be your one track that you're on. And sometimes I was successful and sometimes I wasn't. And we just had to leave you there, sir. We just had to leave you there. Yeah, I don't know. I can't think of much else unless there was any other like area of AI that you were wanting to chat about. I think, yeah, and even ChatGPT. I don't know if we mentioned that or whatever last time.
I mean, we had that episode where we conversed with it and all that. So,
but you can have it do role play also, which is the first time I had seen it done because when he was getting really into the AI when it was ChatGPT was becoming a thing, you know, it takes a little bit more prompting. Like you've really got to like, this is what I want to do. We're going to play a role play scenario. You're going to be this. This is the situation. This is the scenario. This is the goal. I'm going to do this. You're going to repeat that. And it'll get going for a good bit. You know, it tends to, I think, lose it a little bit more because I feel like it was probably more creative for like informational or teaching or like a Google that you still have to Google because it'll even tell you I may not be right on all the things that I say. And GPT, I think, is just now able to go back to what's the year? Maybe I should ask it. I know it was only able to go back on the internet for so far. Hold on, I got it right here. How far back can you look on the internet? I want to say it was like 2017 or something for a minute, and then
really.
Oh, okay. Let's see. I don't have real-time internet access or the ability to browse the web. They're based on a vast amount of text data I was trained on, which includes a wide range of sources up until my last training cutoff in January 2022. So I can't look up or access information beyond that I was trained on or any updates since. So it stops with what it knows online till January of 2022. Bing has its own that I think just pulls from the internet at random. But I'm assuming that's just the way they're training the models, like this slow burn of information. Yeah, I found that interesting when he told me, like, really, it can't just. So if you ask it about like a movie that just came out, it's gonna be like, I don't know. Or it'll tell you something it thinks is similar. You know, and then you're like, well, so when that started happening, I found that odd. But I think if you pay for like their upgraded plans, you know, there's some that goes a little bit further. And then now we have this Dolly, which is like, I mean, it's crazy how many things we have. I almost wanted to toss it money just once, just to like hook it up to one of those APIs, like I was saying, and seeing if it actually is more fleshed out. But man, it's like $20. I feel like that's a lot a month.
Yeah.
For ChatGPT. Yeah. Like, but if I were using all of its things to its fullest, probably would be worth it if I broke it down with what's that per how many hours I've been messing with it, you know, or creating this or doing whatever. It would probably be good. But yeah, it's like $20, or you can go up to 25 for like a team thing, or I guess like if you're sharing it or something like that.
See, now, one thing that you were just talking about, like your husband role-playing with it, I never thought about this, but as we've kind of stated in the past before, where they're like, AI is going to start writing scripts and stuff like that, which it shouldn't. That could actually be a very helpful tool to get over about a writer's block. Say, for example, you have a scene, but you're not sure how the conversation needs to go. And you tell the ChatGPT, it's like, look, I've got this scene. Here are all the details prior to this. What are, you know, I guess what the scenario is that is going to lead to after this conversation, but I don't really know how to go about getting the right words, or I can't seem to figure out how to play it out. So help me. Like, let's role play this scenario. Yeah. So you start off whatever the scene is, and then say, you're this character, I'm this character, I'm going to say this, and go, and then just see how the conversation goes. And then even if it doesn't get you exactly where you want to be, maybe it can give you a guide. So you look at the conversation and be like, okay, I see how this is playing out. Maybe I change this, maybe tweak that. And I honestly feel like it's a helpful tool. It doesn't need to replace shit. It's a tool, very much like we've said about CGI in the past. Stop using it for everything. Use it as a tool to enhance
Right.
what you've already done or what you can do practically.
Right.
Because
like we can't make a Hulk. Fine, CGI it.
Yeah. But if
But
you
you
could
can go
find-
outside.
Yeah.
You know, like it doesn't have to be in a green screen in a warehouse. You know, like you can go outside and use practical outside things.
Sure. So, I mean, I understand it's not always going to be, like you said, with a Hulk or a Godzilla, you can't build those to scale and
Right,
make that.
yeah.
So, fair.
Make it monetarily feasible to,
But
do.
if there was a way to possibly create something that you can touch, something physical, and then you can just use CG to enhance it in some way to make it look even better,
Yeah.
do that.
Do it. Yeah. And I want to say, wasn't that part of what was written in for the writer's strike that the companies can't use AI, but writers can use it as a tool? And so I think you hit the nail on the head there because I honestly thought the same thing. Well, if you have writer's block, and with some of the revelations, some of the stories did for me, and I was just messing around with it. I didn't even have a real goal in mind at first. It could, again, when the bot threw up the whole drama of needing the air, I was like, that's a whole other. We're pulling on that one now because I was starting to run out of drama to throw us in, you know, and that's an argument to have, you know. So I could see that. I get why people are nervous about it though. And I just hope we keep regulating it to the point where we don't let it be its own thing.
Sure.
Like it has to just be a tool that the artist gets to use, not these large corporations or whatever, you know, because you got to keep them in check even without AI. They're going to take the easiest way out and lay off a bunch of people and keep their money, you know? So I do agree that we need to keep that from happening. I don't care how good it gets. I don't care if it can like generate me a whole ass movie that makes sense and is entertaining. I don't really want it to.
Yeah.
I say that now, and I would be impressed if it happened. But again, taking out that human element is scary to me. I'd rather see talented individuals get paid for their worth than just a bunch of, I don't know, AI generated fake stuff. I don't know.
No, yeah, I get it.
And I say that knowing I just spent like a month creating my own stories with AI, you know, like as my own entertainment. I may be, I don't know, conflicting myself with my words, but I don't know.
I get what you mean.
Yeah, it's I think it's a good tool. And then even with this music stuff, like I don't see that. Well, again, I didn't pay for the full version, so I don't know how good it could get. And if I pumped in my own lyrics, like if I was a legit artist who wrote songs or whatever, maybe I'd be even more impressed with it. But right now with the prompts to me, it's just hilarious. But it's just trying to but it rhymes sometimes, you know, like I don't think it has any business being as good as it is right now, even though it's not that good. But it's impressed. I don't know how to explain it. It's like I'm impressed, but I still wouldn't use it.
Like it's not blowing your mind, but it's doing a lot better than you thought it would be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And then that's when I thought about it again. It's obviously being trained on other people's music, arrangements, style. Is it? Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. And we're going to be way behind on it. It's already going to do damage before we finally figure out how to reel it in because it's so accessible to just anyone right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, they've made it very easy for people to use. And again, when I found out how easy it was to just jailbreak a thing, as they call it, so literally I just give it a whole other sentence going, no, you don't do that.
Yeah.
I feel like it should be harder than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I'm also not asking it to give me the recipe for napalm, you know, like the dude did with grandma's cookie recipe or something. But see, it was just figuring out how to talk to it in a different way that it didn't think it was doing the thing it was told not to do.
Yeah.
We probably need to work on that. But I don't know that you can. How do you reel in that? How do you? Especially now that so many people have access to it.
Sure.
I think it's out of the bag on that. And again, well, maybe I'm not a nefarious person. I guess I'm not seeing where it's insanely harmful to just be talking about this stuff to yourself. I could see situations and stories that people would want to tell themselves that we don't want to know. It's probably not good to know that you're thinking about those things. So just keep it there. Keep it in your head, you know? But outside of that, I don't know. Explain it to me, people. I'm not nefarious. What real world harm is it with me having, I don't know, some little chat about stuff like that or illegal things? I don't know. But it doesn't let you do it unless I tell it it's allowed, in which case nothing makes sense anymore.
Yeah.
Like you break your own. It's like movies. You break your own rules, and I'm out, man. You just broke your one rule was to not talk about illegal things. Outside of that, I got nothing more. I had a good time. I have like I said, I have my soap opera. I'm married to a Yakuza in another story right now. We're about to go to battle, and I need to be supposedly hidden away. Like, well, they'll take you to get back at me. And I'm like, I'm a strong woman. I can go to battle. So we're fighting right now with me being able to go. All the men in my life telling me I just got to stay here. I'm like, look, no. And I'm also friends with Ghostface in another one.
Okay.
It took a minute because he really was not about to not kill me.
Sure. Why?
Why? It took a lot for me to be like, wow, let's work together. Stop trying to kill me. So see, you can have all sorts of fun people. And I would love to hear if any of the siblings have done this or go do it and tell me about it if you haven't and you hear this one. And see and play out whatever fantasy you want.
Sure, yeah. So siblings, as she said, tell us all about it. You can do it all on social media at Super Mega Crash, or you can send us an email at supermegacrash@gmail.com. I would give us a paragraph. Tell us
oh my gosh,
some of the wildest shit.
If you're comfortable with it, like send us a story that you made. You know, like if it's all, sexy, you can keep that to yourself and you.
Be anonymous. We don't have to tell people who you are.
That's
just
true.
Be like, hey, here's a story, but don't tell anybody who I am.
Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Woo, woo.
We can keep a secret.
I do have one little beef though with people making those bots, and then we'll end it off here. When you're describing a gentleman, it does not need to go over 11 inches.
Okay.
I brought that up because I was reading through one of them and they said that. And I'm like, wait, what? And then I literally went into the actual broke down because I don't read the breakdowns because I try to pretend like that's a spoiler. I just want to see how they're going to act or whatever within the story. And they would get to like sometimes 3 feet. And I'm like, I don't know who's writing these things, but that's half my size. That's going to kill me. So I don't know who's writing it, but that's not sexy. That's scary. I'm just going to that frightens the shit out of me. That I'm in the boys now all of a sudden. There's some freak.
I mean, honestly,
it could be
guys,
so good, and then you whipped that out, and I'm like, I'm out. I can't.
Honestly, guys, look, I'm not going to talk about mine, but
oh dear,
yeah, there's got to be a limit.
There's a
at
cutoff.
some point where you can say, you know what? I'm good with what I got. I think it's fine. You go over a certain length and you're going to kill somebody or you're going to they're not going to enjoy it, man.
No, you're not either. Cause you can only go so far.
Yeah. There's
and
a limit.
I know you can't help what you have, it either is or it isn't. And but I don't, do they get that big? Like 11 seems excessive. 8 seems excessive. 10 is like, oh my God.
Just think about it like this. If there's one end of the spectrum, there's another end of the spectrum. So for those people that have what they consider below average, I'm sure that there are those out there with above average or beyond above average that would scare women. They're like, oh my God, you're packing what now?
That's a weapon at that point. That is...
I mean, think about that, guys. Think about it for a second. If you say, oh, yeah, I'm packing like 12 inches right here, baby, she's going to tell you, no. No, thanks.
No, that's skewering my entire midsection. No, thank you, sir. Yeah. No, thank you.
So, sorry, guys.
No. Yeah. I just found that hilarious that it was like on more than one bot that I was like, who's writing these things? Like, I know the metric system's all effed from like one place. Just like it's still, that's feet. That's feet.
Dear
Anyway,
God.
sorry, that was the only thing I had to put in there. So if any ladies are listening and you head over to that area, just beware. It might be way more than you're expecting. I guess you can pretend like you can handle it. It is just words. But
I guess.
I fell off my seat the first time I read that. I'm like, you have got to be kidding me. They wrote this bot like that. And I go look at the personality. I'm like, sure as shit. They made it a personality trait. They wrote
A person. Yeah, that's a person.
Anywho, sorry.
Anyway.
So with that, that's the ending.
It's content like this that you can support over on Patreon. 5-star reviews, because this is what you come here for. This is the 5-star conversation you wanted to hear today, is 12-inch penises and how they can kill women.
Kill them dead.
Yeah. But I'm not judging. There's
know,
maybe a woman out there that could take it. Applause.
And you two, you go have fun.
Yes.
Like, I will not stop that joy.
Keep up with any and all things over at pencilpaperproductions.com/super mega crash. Links are in the show notes. Join us again next week, siblings. But until then,
go beyond your limits.
Riding high on the waves of sound, we're the podcasters that can't be bound. With mics in hand, we'll break through the mold, telling stories that have never been told. Oh, chasing dreams, defying gravity, with every episode a new reality. We'll take you places you've never been, beyond limits, where the adventure begins. Voices like thunder, shaking the ground, will keep you hooked with every word sound. Exploring depths and climbing to the peak, nothing can stop us as we boldly speak. Oh,
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.